My name is Andrea Johnson. I am the Grant and Financial Education Coordinator for the Office of Consumer Credit Commissioner. Today we're going to be going over how to avoid senior financial exploitation. I would like to point out that there are some handouts available. The slides for this presentation, there is a medical identity theft worksheet from the Federal Trade Commission that's available, a credit facts brochure that we publish, and there's also a budgeting worksheet just in case anyone would need that. You'll notice there is a question box available, and there's not going to be a lot of us on the webinar today, so it's going to be a nice little intimate group. So if you have any questions, feel free to type those into the box, and I will try to answer your questions as we go along. So it's just now after 10 o'clock. We will give it just one more minute. Let's see. It looks like we've got about half the people who've signed up, so I'd say we'll go ahead and get started if everyone's on board, okay? So like I just said, today we're talking about avoiding senior financial exploitation. I'm Andrea Johnson. I'm the Grant and Financial Education Coordinator for the Office of Consumer Credit Commissioner. Before we do anything today, I need to point out that this webinar is for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. Before we dive into senior financial exploitation, I want to go over a little bit of what the Texas Office of Consumer Credit Commissioner does. We license and regulate certain non-depository institutions. We protect and safeguard consumers against abusive and deceptive lending practices. And we educate consumers like yourselves and creditors about their rights and responsibilities. Here are a few of the businesses that we license. We license pawn shops, for instance, payday loan lenders, and we register debt management and settlement providers and manufactured housing creditors. I always like to point out and talk about the pawn shops because anytime you're driving down I-35 and you see pawn shops on the side of the road, or you have been into a pawn shop, then you have had some indirect contact with the Office of Consumer Credit Commissioner. We also provide consumer assistance. We protect consumers like yourself from misrepresentation, fraud, deceptive practices by addressing your complaints, providing information about credit transactions, helping you understand the terms of contracts and your legal rights, and we help to mediate disputes. Now, if you have any complaints or concerns about any of the industries that we license and register, please call our consumer assistance hotline, okay? We also provide financial education. Through instance, me, the Financial Education Coordinator, we offer informational webinars and seminars. Before the pandemic, we were doing this specific webinar in person a lot. We provide financial education materials, and you can get those at occc.texas.gov. We provide public service announcements and press releases, and we partner with other education-oriented organizations. I like to point this out because since I am the grant coordinator, I handle our Texas Financial Education Endowment. And what that means is that we provide funding to different organizations across the state of Texas that provide programs for K through 12, adults, financial education, and financial coaching. And I'm very proud to be a part of that and all the hard work that our organizations across the state have been doing. Again, I want to point out that this webinar is for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. If you feel that I'm rushing through anything, just put it in the question box. There will be a video after this presentation. So today the goal is to recognize and reduce the risk of senior financial exploitation. We want to also learn how to plan for the unexpected loss of the ability to manage your finances. Let's say you have some cognitive impairment or that of course you weren't expecting, And then, or you have a physical impairment where you're not the one going to the bank to make your deposits or pick up your checks, or you're not going into the bank yourselves. And we're also identifying resources on managing money and reporting financial exploitation. Reporting it is a big proponent of stopping it. So what is senior financial exploitation? Well, it's the theft of money or property by caregivers or possibly in-home helpers. And caregivers do include family members. It can come in the form of someone saying you won the lottery, a sweepstakes. It can come by telephone, over the internet. It can be identity theft. It can be contractor fraud and home improvement scams. All these people going door to door offering all these different products. You still need to do your research and find out what exactly they're offering and whether or not they're legitimate. So the reason why seniors, unfortunately, can be a target of exploitation is because people are in this mindset. Some people are in the mindset that you have significant amounts of money in your personal accounts. So if they can just get a hold of that checkbook, then they're going to run down to the bank and wipe out your bank account. They're also preying on the frailties of aging, cognitive loss, physical impairments, fear of going out. They're relying on your dependence of others. Maybe you are taking care of someone. Maybe you have a senior parent, a grandparent, and they have someone who comes over every day and checks on them because you physically can't go and do that for them. So it's important to know that that person that's coming into their home every day is someone that they can rely on and trust, and that you can trust as well. Criminals are also preying on isolation. And so, especially right now during the pandemic, where we've told older individuals, individuals with medical conditions to stay home, this has become a big part of financial theft. So sadly enough, there's a long list of people who can take advantage of seniors financially. Sadly enough, it is family members and caregivers at the top of the list, followed by friends, neighbors, and acquaintances. Again, those are people closest to you. Then it comes by way of telephone, internet, mail scams, financial advisors, Medicare scams. That's a big one. And part of the reason why senior financial exploitation can be such a problem is when it comes to reporting it. A lot of times an older adult at this point in their life, they feel embarrassed to admit they've been exploited. Maybe they're loyal to a family member or a caregiver. Maybe your son has said, hey, can you co-sign on this new loan for this truck? And then what happens if they default on that loan? I actually had a person explain that to me at one of my presentations in person, and she was really upset by it, and that happened to her, especially being on a fixed income. So there's fear of retaliation or not being believed, dependence on the abuser for daily assistance. If someone's coming into your home every day to bring you your groceries, but they're also snatching $10 out of your wallet, or they've stolen a credit card and run up charges, or they're using your social security number, you're still dependent on them for those daily needs. There's denial, self-blame, and lack of awareness. I find a lot of the times during this presentation that a lot of seniors are very aware of what's going on, but then it just takes that one little slip up, and then the person on the other end of the phone has all your information. So we're going to have some polls today, some questions. And my first question is, have you been a victim of identity theft? Yes, no, or you're not sure. It looks like almost everyone has clicked on the box, yes or no, or not sure. I'm going to close the poll and share that with everyone so we can see where we all are. And you'll see on your screen that 31% say yes, you've been a victim of identity theft. 62% say no, and 8% say not sure. For the not sure, I would make sure that you're checking your credit report and your bank statements and your credit card statements very thoroughly, because that is going to be a good place for you to start. So identity theft happens when thieves steal your personal information, like your social security number, your birth date, your credit card and other account information, and your PINs and passwords. And with enough information, they can basically become you. And that's what we don't want to happen. They can also wipe out your bank account. I know someone who has had their bank account probably hit 3 times, and they've been very fortunate that their bank came through for them and helped clean everything up and took care of that for them. So there are things you can do to protect yourself against identity theft. Never provide personal information in response to unwanted phone calls or letters. So if someone is calling you, and we'll talk more about Social Security scams in a minute. I've had a few phone calls personally lately about that topic, but they're calling and trying to get my personal information. Make sure that you can protect your incoming and outgoing mail by using a secure mailbox. Try to use direct deposit, so then you're preventing, the checks coming through the mail. Use a shredder to destroy financial trash. So financial trash would be hard credit cards, a plastic credit card, your bank statements, your credit card statements, anything like that after you have reviewed it and maybe made a, maybe have a digital copy of it. That would be great. Digital copies are best. And then you destroy that financial trash. Make sure you're monitoring your bank accounts and your credit card bills. That's something I just mentioned when it says, have you been a victim of identity theft? If you're not monitoring these things, you should be. Your credit report, you can get a free credit report every year through annualcreditreport.com. And so at least that's a good start to kind of manage your identity, make sure your credit's okay, make sure you're keeping track of whether or not anyone is playing tricks on you. Never provide bank account information to an unsolicited email or website. Even if it looks like it's coming from your bank, it may not be. And make sure, like I just mentioned, review your credit report frequently. That's a big one. So if you feel like you've been a victim of identity theft, the Federal Trade Commission recommends you immediately follow these steps. Place a fraud alert with one of the 3 credit reporting agencies. Order your credit reports. Create an identity theft report. And consider placing an extended fraud alert or security freeze on your credit report. Depending on the circumstances is what you should do to help with this. And of course, the first thing, contact your bank immediately. I had a charge one time that came overnight, and I had been working. I was working overnight as a news producer, and I got a phone call from my bank, and they said, "Did you make this charge?" And I was, "No, I have no clue what you're talking about." And it definitely got taken care of immediately, though. So there are a number of different Social Security scams. Usually they're the number 1 reported scam to the Federal Trade Commission. They come usually in the form of automated phone calls threatening benefits. Recently, for some reason, during the last couple months during the pandemic, I personally have received the Social Security phone call numerous times. I'm going to see if I can play that for you guys. It should play.
Your Social Security number would immediately theft. Due to this, all your social benefits will be.
Hopefully you can hear this.
In case you feel this is due to an error, You may connect with legal Social Security Administration. In order to connect with a Social Security Administration officer,
press 1. And that is the trick. Press 1. So I keep getting this call during the pandemic, and the person is saying, press 1, press 1. And what I'd really like to do is press 1 to tell them to stop calling me. But by pressing 1, you're just opening yourself up to a whole barrel of fish where someone is just trying to get information from you. Oh, well, what was the phone number you're calling from? What is your address? What is your social? And they're just looking to get information from you. In the first half of 2019, $17 million were stolen from Social Security scams from people across the United States. And always keep in mind when it comes to these, the Social Security Administration is not going to ask for money, and they're not going to call you. You're the one who's going to have to initiate that. So if you're getting a phone call like the one you just heard, hang up and report it. So this is a question that I can answer yes to now. Has anyone ever tried to steal your Social Security information? I would even include those phone calls. Just calling and fishing for your information is someone trying to get your information. They're trying to get your Social Security number. They're probably going to probe you for something else, your birth date, your address, your phone number, maybe your Medicare information. So I even say yes to this. So let's share and see how everyone kind of stacked up. And it says yes. So 71% of you say yes, someone has tried to steal my Social Security information. 14% say no, and 14% say I don't know. Now the I don't know could fall into the, maybe you haven't seen anything come out of your bank account. Maybe you haven't seen anything erroneous when you go to the doctor and, he's asking about a treatment or something that you haven't received. But for the most part, a large number of us have someone calling or asking, or maybe they've gotten your social and they've run up a long list of credit cards, bought a house. I know someone who their parent actually used their Social Security number to purchase a home before they were even 18, and they had no clue. So going forward and talking about your Social Security number, we're also going to talk about medical identity theft. This is a big part of financial exploitation because medical identity theft can be deadly. So let's say someone steals your personal information, like your Social Security number or your Medicare number, and they use it for medical treatment, prescription drugs, other services, and bills for Medicare. If this happens, you could be denied service for service or equipment. It could affect your medical and insurance records, and you could receive the wrong, perhaps harmful treatment. Let's say someone steals your Social Security number, your Medicare number, they go to the doctor and they have different blood type. And now that's on your file under your information. And then you go in to have surgery. And they go, well, what's this person's blood type? They pull the record, and the last thing they see was whatever that person did fraudulently. That could be a problem. That's a big problem. But we're also talking about simply being denied service, being denied medical equipment. Maybe you need a new walker, a new wheelchair, a new aspirator. You need something, and you're being denied. And so we don't want that to happen. And like I mentioned in my handouts today, if you'd like, I can always email those to you. I've got one that is medical theft and what to know, and that is from the Federal Trade Commission. And it's a little pamphlet that talks more about it and gives you some questions to ask yourself to see if that's happened to you. So some warning signs that your medical identity has been stolen is that you receive a bill for services you did not receive. That's a big red flag. You're contacted from a collection agency for money you don't owe. You notice from your insurance company that you have reached your limit for medical benefits, even though you haven't, or you're being denied insurance for a medical condition you don't have. You know, you get a statement in the mail and you go, why am I being denied for something I don't even have? I've never been diagnosed with or treated for. That's a big red flag. Now, in order to avoid medical identity theft, which, as I mentioned, I have the flyer attached from the Federal Trade Commission, you need to protect your Medicare and insurance cards. Those are really, you know, those are just as important as anything else. As a credit card, as your driver's license, you need to protect those. You need to review your Medicare summary notices, insurance of explanation benefits, statements, and medical bills. So make sure everything that's showing up on your summary notices, your explanation of benefits, and your medical bills all match the procedures and diagnosis and all of that information, all your medical information. Make sure it all matches. Also, be aware of offers in exchange for your Medicare number. And when we're talking about offers for your Medicare number, that could even be people saying, oh, well, I'll go and run and pick up your prescription. I just need your Medicare number. I'll run and do such and such. I just need your Medicare number. Oh, I'll call for you on the phone. Just give me your Medicare number. So be aware of people asking for that. There are things you can do for when you can shred medical papers. I had one woman one time, what she does, she doesn't have a shredder. So what she would do, she told me, was she would tear up her documents, you know, any important documents. And as she went out during the day, she would deposit some of them in different trash cans everywhere. So none of her pieces were together, which it seems to, you know, it seems like going out of your way, but it works. You know, she's shredded, she doesn't have a shredder, so she's tearing it up and putting it in different places so, you know, no one can tape it back together. Make sure you're removing and destroying labels off of your prescription bottles and packaging before throwing them away. That is one I really have to work on personally. Ask your healthcare provider for a copy of your current medical file. It's your medical information, so you should have it in your hand in case you need it. Another thing we're going to talk about today when it comes to financial exploitation are scams. So we've talked about identity theft. We've talked about medical theft. Now we're going to talk about scams and phone calls specifically. So I'm sure some of you have heard of this one, and it's the telephone call, the email, the letter regarding a lottery, and they're saying you've won. Well, you've never entered into this lottery, so you couldn't have won. But what they're requesting for you is upfront processing fees. You know, send me a money order for $50 and I can send you the lottery that you've won, this big check, I can deposit this money for you. And the problem is these are going to look like authentic looking claim checks when you see them and when you receive them. And then there is a sweepstakes recovery calls. So what this is that since bankers are generally aware of the scam and they know to spot the phony calls, the recovery call is also that part where it's a two-part process. So your recovery call is the sweepstakes where you are, oh, well, you've won the money, you need the money, and then you need to also recover and call your bank and take care of it. There's also this one, and this one's really popular. You know, the hello, grandpa, I'm in trouble, please don't tell mom. So in 2017, 1 in 5 people reported losing money in an imposter scheme like this one. The Federal Trade Commission reports $328 million in losses to scams like these, and 70 years and older report the greatest losses. There are probably going to be people who spend more time at home, who aren't necessarily on social media websites. So the problem is with these kind of phone calls is that someone can see a grandson, a niece, a nephew, a granddaughter, learn all about them personally on Facebook or Twitter or, Instagram. There's TikTok. There's all of these, social media websites that people are supplying personal information to. So they could call you in the middle of the night and say, hey, hey, Grandpa, this is Jake. I'm stuck in jail. Can you wire me some money? And they can name the state and everywhere that this person has traveled to at some point. So it might sound familiar. I had a presentation one time where a woman told me she did receive a phone call like that. I think they told her that her nephew was in Canada, used his name, mentioned his parents' name, gave personal information about this person. And what she did was she hung up, she called the parents to find out where this person was. And they're like, no, he was here last night. He just left and went to work. So she automatically nipped that in the bud and knew that it was fake. But a lot of people don't, as it shows, $328 million in losses. So one thing I want to ask today, just because this is pretty popular, how many times do you receive automated phone calls? Maybe once a day, twice a day, a few times a week, or hardly ever? I feel like lately, especially with a lot of people being shut in more so and a lot of sales being over the phone or online, that I personally am getting probably at least once a day, I get a phone call about my car insurance. I get a phone call about my Social Security. I get a phone call about all these different things. And I just want to say, no, please stop calling me. So it looks like 25% of you say it at least once a day, 33% say twice a day, 33% also say a few times a week, and 8% say hardly ever. I can tell you, speaking to the 8% of you who say hardly ever, you are very lucky. These phone calls are so annoying, and they're just trying to get information out of people, and then probably trying to get information about other people around you. Like I mentioned, I've even received the Social Security phone calls over the last couple months. So automated phone calls and robocalls. Another thing that makes this interesting is that right now we're in the middle of an election and you're probably getting phone calls. So let's talk about what's illegal and what's not legal and what's allowed. So it turns out robocalls are illegal if they are trying to sell you something. Now, robocalls coming from a legitimate business with a live person on the speaking to you, live person on the other end of the phone, they are usually done through the internet and an automated caller. However, political candidates and charities calling for donations are not illegal. So all the political phone calls that you're getting lately, vote for me, vote for me, vote for me, vote no, vote yes, that's not illegal. That's not something you can get rid of. Charities calling, Breast Cancer Society, the Police Association calling, it's not illegal to call and solicit donations. It's also, if a company has written permission to contact you, then it's okay. So why do they call and what can you do about them? Well, the reason why there are so many robocalls that you get constantly is that they are cheap and easy to make from the internet all over the world. No one's sitting at a phone book nowadays and going through and selecting the numbers and calling people on their phone. It's just online. All the information they need is right there. Scammers can also fake the name and number that shows up, and it's called spoofing. Looks like. And so what that means is that I know when I was still living in Pflugerville, I was getting calls from Hutto. Well, that's where my dentist was. So I would see the number and say, oh, Hutto, Texas, and I would answer it and be like, it's just someone trying to sell me something. So look into call blocking solutions. If you have a problem with this, depending on if they are calling on a cell phone or a landline, the blocking services are going to be different. I know with mine, when I get spam calls, I have the option to report and block, and I've been doing that a lot lately. Many people that I've talked to mention the do not call registry, but that only blocks calls from real companies and not scammers. So that's putting you on a list of where it's only coming from real people. It's not these automated over the internet phone call. And as always, the best thing to do is to hang up and report it. Anytime you feel like you're being scammed, you need to report it. So scammers can be very convincing, and if something seems unusual about what they're offering, you need to check it out. When it comes to lotteries, for instance, you never pay to play, so you don't win. So if you didn't buy that lottery ticket, if you didn't go and buy that scratch-off ticket, of course you didn't win. Like it says, you cannot be a winner for a contest you didn't enter. Always be suspicious of pressure to wire funds or send prepaid cards. That goes with a lot of different scams. You know, the grandpa scam, the lottery scam, anything, your bank, you know, you see those emails from, you know, people that are from other countries requesting you to wire them money. The answer is no. You should also pay attention to warnings from your financial institution. And we're going to go over phishing and spoofing in a second. If the caller says it's an emergency, you need to verify that they're calling from a valid phone number. That could even be the form of they tell you what business they're calling from, you hang up with them, you look for that business, and you call that business directly to see if it's even real. And beware of secrecy. So in this instance, with these different scams going around, if you are told to just keep it between you and the other person, no, thank you. So let's talk a little bit about phishing and spoofing. Criminals are preying on senior adults and their lack of familiarity with the internet and online security. And we always say that because the internet really hasn't been around that long, despite the fact that we live with it every day and carry it in our hands, in our phones. So cyber attacks can come in the form of phishing and spoofing. Phishing scammers create authentic-looking emails, text messages, and internet pages in order to entice their victims to disclose personal information. What this means is let's say you receive an email and it says it's from your bank, but if you actually look at the email address, it's 123bob4569@me.com. And it's not Wells Fargo, it's not Bank of America, it's not Chase, it's not RBSU, it's, you know, it's not all the other banks. You just hover over the top of it and you can see the email address if it's disguised in any way. And you're also going to look for, be aware of like attachments to the email. Usually your bank isn't going to send you an attachment. Spoofing will be disguised as coming from an email or website you've trusted before. Again, this can go into your bank. You'll get a lot of information that says, hey, you know, this email's from Bank of America, for instance, and it looks like it looks legitimate, but if you just hover your mouse over that email address, something else is going to pop up. Don't click on it, but something else is going to pop up and you're going to see it's not a legitimate email address. And that could even show like if it's coming from a .net instead of a .com or .gov or .org or, wherever, whatever it comes in the form of, that's also a red flag. Now, both phishing and spoofing scams are targeting your personal information. They're looking for your social security numbers and possibly your Medicare number. And those are things we want to hold safe to us. Here are some steps you can do to reduce the risk of an online attack. Nobody wants to be attacked online. It's kind of like financial exploitation and bullying at the same time. You want to take some online safety measures. Always make sure you're using trusted security software and update frequently. Do not email financial information or account numbers. Your email can always be hacked. Someone can always hack your password and get that information. Be cautious about opening up attachments and downloading files. If you receive an email from someone you don't know and there's a hyperlink in there or an attachment, don't touch it. Also use complex passwords. 123 password is not a good password. So try to mix it up. There's also software out there that will generate passwords for you. Although I would have a problem remembering them. Make sure you're shut down your PC when it's not in use. So someone else, who comes in and out of the home can't mess with it. Don't open messages from unknown senders. So if it's an email address that you don't recognize at all, just don't even open it. If you open a suspicious message, delete it. Do not click on links or telephone numbers in the message, and that goes for text messages as well. We receive a lot of text message lately. I was receiving there was one that I received a lot lately, especially I guess with people doing a lot of online shopping and deliveries, is I've been getting fake FedEx text saying that, oh, we came by and you weren't available for this package. Call this number. Come here to claim your package. Click on this link to claim your package. Well, if you didn't purchase anything and you weren't expecting anything, especially something that requires a signature, don't click on the link in the text message. It's probably fake. Delete emails and texts asking you to confirm or provide information. So that goes along those same lines. When you get those, it's almost where when it's in my email, it's on a laptop, it's on a computer, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm a little bit more weary, I'm a little bit more put off. But for some reason, when I'm holding it in my hand and it's on my phone, like a text message, and you're not expecting text from people that you don't know, you almost feel safer to click on that message and to see what it is. Because how did they get your number? How do they know you personally? So here are a few safety measures you can do to guard against becoming a victim. Make sure you're securing your valuables and private financial documents. Require receipts for all purchases. I think about this a lot when I'm at the gas station and I swipe at the pump and you see those stories about the credit card skimmers at pumps. And I always go, ooh, yeah, I do want my receipt, because then at least I can track the last place that credit card or debit card was used, and I have a receipt showing proof if I need it. Monitor your bank accounts and telephone bills. So when it says telephone bills, to me, I think of the fact that, we pay for data, or you don't pay, you have unlimited data, and then all of a sudden you have a bill that shows, you're paying for internet somewhere else. Never promise money or assets after you die in exchange for care. That's kind of like a sad thing to think about, but there are people out there, family, close friends, caregivers who say, oh, I'll help you, as long as you put me in the will. Or if someone's hesitant to help you and you're like, well, I have all, I was thinking about putting in my will, I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about that. And then that person cheers up and they help you right away. They shouldn't be helping you. I would not trust that person. Also, never lend money or personal property. And to me, lending money also comes in the form of signing a loan. So if you don't have the money to cover someone else's loan expenses and you're on a fixed income, the answer is no. Just say no. When it comes to personal property, just say no, especially if you're a senior, if you're someone who's taking care of a senior, or you're looking for someone to care for a senior in your life. Make sure that they're not just handing out money or personal property, rings and necklaces and expensive watches, things like that, in exchange for someone to take care of them. So also today, there's a few things you can do besides contacting the Office of Consumer Credit Commissioner when it comes to reporting any concerns or complaints about the businesses that we license and register. There's also Adult Protective Services and the Federal Trade Commission. They help with identity theft. And so that's where you're going to report, if you've been a victim of identity theft, call the Federal Trade Commission. If you or someone you know needs adult protective services, please go to their website or call them for more information. Of course, police, a threatening phone call, just in general, and the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, the FDIC. This is another one that you can contact. And they also, what I like about the FDIC is on their website, there's lots of financial education materials. So you can go there and learn more about financial education, budgeting, credit. For instance, we will be doing more of these webinars in the future. If there was someone you would like to, if there's someone in your life that you think would benefit from today's webinar, for instance, avoiding senior financial exploitation, I plan to do this again in November. And this is a presentation I really enjoyed doing. I really like helping our seniors. Both of my parents fall into that category. So it's very near and dear to my heart to make sure that the people that we care about in that older age bracket, including ourselves, if you're retired or you're close to retirement, or you're taking care of someone, it's really important to make sure that they're not being exploited financially, and give them some tools and tricks to prevent that from happening. Next week, we are also going to go over budgeting again. And if you go to our website, occc.texas.gov, under the Consumer Education tab, you will find more information on our financial education webinars. I would like to say thank you to everyone who attended today. And hopefully, if you have any questions, you can send them now, or you can email them to me. One of my email addresses is right there on the screen. So feel free to email me any questions you have about today's webinar. If you need a copy of the handouts, and like I said, a video of this presentation will be available afterwards, and there's also a short survey. So please stick around for the survey and fill out that information for me. I really appreciate it. It was great talking to you today, and I look forward to doing this in the future. Thank you.